What if grief was actually behind the guilt and shame that mothers feel? Welcome back to the Chill Like a Mother podcast. I'm Kayla Kuzar, the host. I am a creative counselor and coach for moms, and I am joined today with Tara. We both have different yet the same thread of story around grief and motherhood and the bittersweetness of it all, always trying to let go and give freedom, honor our feelings and their feelings and the stages of life and all of the things. And so, Tara, thank you so much for being here. What is your opening words for us today?
My goodness. Well, it's wonderful just to be here. It really is. And sitting in a space with mamas and just like the raw truth of it all is this is my jam. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much. Can you start us off with how you personally and or professionally feel like grief is connected to those guilt and shame feelings that so many mothers feel?
Mhm. So I think when I think about grief, I think and how it is connected with shame and with guilt is I think coming into motherhood, we have an expectation or we have this vision of what things are going to look like. And it does not look like that once we get into it. And in that, when things are kind of falling flat, when things are going off track, when things are kind of hitting us in the face, when we're dealing with, when our kid is one of those kids, if you will, um,
Mhm.
there can be a lot of guilt and shame that comes up around it. What kind of mother am I? Have I done something wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my child? A lot of that kind of narrative can start playing into it, which leads into so many other feelings, that I relate to grief. It's a whirlwind, it's to kind of the emotions, but to be able to kind of pick those things apart. As mamas, we beat ourselves up a lot, and guilt and shame are a real thing. And also they breed and they fester, in spaces of silence. And so to be able to have some truth to that, be able to bring some truth to how you're feeling and the realness of your reality as it is, not that what you thought it would be, or you think it should be, but that takes a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, and a ton of vulnerability.
Yes. Do you have a story that you'd like to share with everybody today in relation to that?
I do. It's near and dear to my heart. And before I kind of get into the intricacies of my story, I do want to preface it by saying I am a mama of two kids. I have ages 24 and 9. Both my kids have given a blessing to share about them. They're part of my story, and it's something that I share, sometimes in my clinical setting as well, because it makes it real. You know, Sometimes I think as a professional in the mental health space, there can be a perceived notion of like, she knows what she's doing. And I will tell you, I'm way better with other people's kids than I am with my own, but, especially my son, it has been very open. We have talked very, very openly around his mental health journey, and my daughter as well. So both of my kids, they don't fit in a box. They're kind of the pushback type. They're not following. They're kind of paving their own path. And so there have been some difficulties around that. But where this had all started for me was really in the teenage years with my son. And so we started to notice some different behaviors that were going on later, as he was 19 and kind of a on our knees moment, a plan for suicide, ended us up into the hospital with a diagnosis coming right after that of bipolar type 2 and ADHD, which, was shocking at the time, and a hard one to swallow, but at that point, it makes so much sense. So even in that, there was for me two things. This trial that I had. Did I cause this? What did I do? What could I have done? Should I have told others? Could I have intervened sooner? And that's where guilt and shame come in. And I carried that for many years, throughout those teenage years, and even after the diagnosis. And it wasn't until, I had this moment where somebody had mentioned idea of grief. And I thought, for me, growing up, grief always meant, and I thought, but he didn't, you know, nobody, he's still here. But really, when I thought about it, it almost, that was my relief. Like, let this be. And
Mm.
so much by being preoccupied with worry and concern and fear of what was going on for him. I missed out on so many years of my baby daughter, because I was concerned and checking in, just preoccupied with what he was or was not doing. I missed out on things that I think as a mom, you just expect, like a nice family photo at graduation. Now that was tricky, and there's a story behind that, which we won't get into, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that. But like little things, that you just think like, should it be this hard, to expect that I could get this picture? Should it be this hard that I could expect that, getting to school would be this difficult? To get on a school bus would be so hard. There's been so many moments with both of my kids that have been like that, that I just thought like, why is this so difficult? Why is this,
Yes.
and looking at other people, which I think is, for comparison means, and we have so many places, especially today, to compare ourselves, looking at other families. Why aren't they struggling? Or are they? Or yeah, right? Like what does that look like? Why is my kid not like my sister's kid? Or why is my daughter not like my son? Or like there's this comparison automatically making the assumption that something's wrong. Something is either I've done something wrong or there's something wrong with them. And if there's something wrong with them, what are the things that I don't want to say because that's too ugly to mention. So grief really played a role, and I am a firm believer, and you gotta name it to tame it, And I had been calling grief by many different things throughout those years, fear, anger, worry, sadness, there was a lot of all of those things. But when I grouped it together and really looked at kind of this idea of ambiguous grief and all of the things that I lost along the way that didn't play out in the way that I hoped that they would or that I thought that they should, it was just different. That was my reality.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm most curious about how that grief showed up, like in your body and in your words.
Oh, yes. In my body, I was so tight. So I carry all my stress up top. My shoulders are usually a nice earring, a nice accessory. Yes. And so, but even in that, I really didn't clue in to like, that's what it was. I always thought, oh, it was at the time when this was really kind of getting really wild for us in those years. I was nursing my daughter at the time. And so, she was brand new. There's 15-year difference between my kiddos. And so, I thought, well, maybe maybe this pain is due to this, like maybe that's what this is. It never went away. And now I know that's where it's held. And I know when it creeps back in, I know what's going on and I know how I can soothe that. I can kind of go inward instead of thinking so much, but going inward and on that. I mean, those years were, there's some trauma there for sure, so even when things start to lives in BC, so he's 2 provinces away, and the fear is still there. And so there are times where, maybe I've sent a text message and I haven't received that instant response back, or an hour's gone by, or it hasn't shown up as delivered. I can feel these shoulders start to climb and I know what's happening. My nervous system is going, is he dead in a ditch? That's my worst. So that's where I go, and now I've kind of got this practice where I can understand. I know where I go and I know what it takes for me to come back down, to bring my nervous system back down. So that's typically where it shows up. There are other places that it has shown up for me. That is almost like a numb tingling, starts kind of like a gut hit almost, and then like a numb tingling. And I have experienced that a couple of times, and that's when I know, like, I'm in trouble. I need some support.
Can we zoom in on that process, that like going from noticing to resourcing your way out of it, through it, around it, in like the the practical, but also the practical and emotional kind of how to.
Yeah, you bet. I've always thought that I'm a fast person, that I'm a fast mover, and I've realized my rhythm really isn't that fast. And so when I'm in that, my tendency is to buzz around and do, like move very, very, very quickly. And so when I start to notice that my body is responding in that way and holding something, it is my first indication to sit my butt down physically, you
Mm.
know, ground myself and get back to the basics. Breath, water, and feel. I'm a headsy gal. I like to think a lot, but I don't like to feel about a lot. So it is kind of that thing of like, okay, what's here? Let's have this conversation.
Mm.
Let's have this out. What is here and what needs to process? And sometimes it comes out in a flood of tears. Other times it's anger. So it depends on kind of once I'm able to acknowledge exactly what the feeling is, then I can process it. What my process looks like is often through writing, through journaling, doing unconscious writing. I can just kind of like brain dump and then feel. So often I'll set a timer, down on paper, don't pick it up until the timer kind of goes off. And not for the sake of going back and reading that, I don't understand any of that process. Often that's usually what happens. And if it's feelings of anger, sometimes those are heavier feelings, bigger feelings for me that are harder for me to feel. See if you need to kind of push down and call it frustration or something like that. But in that, sometimes it's, ripping paper or pushing, giving myself that permission to do the thing. If I'm feeling that and it needs to process, if I need to go and scream at the edge of town in some farmer's field, giving yourself permission to go and do that. With the intention of my only intention is just to move this feeling, to
Yes.
allow it to not get clogged in the tube, if you will, where it can just go and notice what comes after that. So it depends on what the feelings are. I have a little toolbox, if you will, of things that just seem to work for me. And I'm a processor. Sometimes it takes me some time um, to really kind of think about things and realize what's going on, and then give myself a permission. That's a whole other ballgame. I'm getting better. It's a practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I um I remember when my youngest was born and flood of mixed emotions and undiagnosed mental health things. And we had a very sudden death in our family 6 weeks after he was born. And everything went into kind of caregiving mode for them and their family. And I feel like I lost time, and I also lost like perspective because of the type of death that it was. Um, and I didn't call it grief then. I called it, resentment and rage. And I don't even think I would have called it anxiety then, but that's how it showed up in my body was like this jitteriness similar to yours, this like propulsion forward, just stay busy and it'll be okay. Just stay busy. Don't stop. Don't rest. Don't think. Don't feel. Just do. And I think for a time that felt safe and was like a protection. It was like it was important that was there. And then when that perspective or that strategy no longer worked, I was forced to look at it and to sit in it once the dust had settled and the acuteness of the crisis had passed. I was able to kind of sit and process, but that took a long time, like a long time. I was probably between 18 months and 2 years to really understand and define what that was, what it is, how do we navigate now moving forward. And felt like I was kind of like robbed of that experience, that new mom experience, and everything that I thought it would be. And and this totally uncontrollable thing happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because you think about, and I think of, go back to my own experience, and I think all of that was held, you said 18 months, and for me, it was a couple of years until I was able to kind of be like, holy crap, what just happened? What is this thing? But after having kind of the awareness and being able to acknowledge what it is, I found it's gotten so much easier. So even I am getting the somatic sensory kind of stuff that's going on. I'm noticing what's going on in the body. I know where it's coming from. So I can have some nutrition and I can meet myself with gentleness and grace and go, of course, you're health. And we're not there yet, and you're allowed to feel this way. So let's feel it. And sometimes even in being able to validate for myself is enough. That it gets a lot quicker. I think about it as like a rebound almost. It gets a lot faster. I'm getting, a little bit better, but just being able to acknowledge, hey, I see what's going on here. I know what's happening and I know why. And of course.
What's unsolicited advice at this point, because we're not being asked, would you give to someone who is listening, who finds themselves in this place of, I thought it was guilt and shame, or maybe it still is, but I feel sad, or I feel like I'm on an autopilot because things aren't as I thought they would be, or life has thrown me a curveball and now I'm not able to enjoy or be present or whatever I so desperately wanted to be present with.
Giving yourself permission, what it is you're feeling. Feelings they're not logical. It doesn't mean anything about you, but we have that I guess notion that, how we're feeling represents us, and it doesn't have to be that. So, especially when I'm working with clients, it is something that I will ask, like what is the darkest thing here? Like what is sitting there? What is sitting on your heart? And sometimes it might be something like, this is not the kid I wanted to come out of. And to say that and watch what happens, allow them space to be able to get that out and notice what happens after the fact. It's like a huge exhale that you can feel. So I think getting really honest around, what are you feeling? What is going on in your mind? What are the thoughts that you're too scared to say? And where's the place that you can say it? It doesn't have to be to anybody. It can be in a damn journal, but being able to look at that and go, whoa. I've never met a client or a person that have had the bravery, courage to share their story and then tell me, this is what's going on. This is what I'm experiencing today. I've never not one time thought, wow, that's interesting. That's very strange you're feeling that way. There's always like a no shit moment where it's like, of course. Yes, you're interested. And often it's like that thing, that really ugly, that's sitting on our heart, that is, we're battling it all the time. We can't say it, but it's always sitting. Is it true? No, it's not true. It's just a feeling.
Yes. I loved that question. What's the darkest part of it? Or what's the hardest part of it? And I find that's, clients will come to me with this surface level situation. I want to set more boundaries, for example, right?
Yeah.
And then we get deeper into it. And I use expressive arts therapy. So that's often through like a visual or a metaphor or a brain dump or something. And then all of a sudden when we hit the bottom and we can't go any further, I'm like, that's what it is. Once we figure out this thing at the bottom, the boundaries will come easily, or the words from the brain to the mouth will flow. Yeah. We think that boundaries are the thing, or we think that guilt and shame are the thing. But when we dig deeper, when we follow the breadcrumb trail, I like to say to my clients, like, this is what you're presenting with, but this is the origin story. Right. It's way back over here. that's where like the magic and those no shit moments happen of like, oh, yeah, that's what I've been holding on to.
Absolutely. It's never a moment, I mean, I think in motherhood, how we show up as mothers or how we present is never the moment. We've got a whole lifetime that we've had of experiences of one, our own motherhood, but all of the other mothers that we, that we've seen in the movies and our friends' moms and our aunties and our grandmas. And we've got all of this influence, but then we've also I think it's the hardest part of life as a parent is like moving through and doing your own healing while trying to like raise these little people and to be incredible, you know, adults and just people in our world. It's the hardest damn thing because we come with our bags packed. They're full. And then we get to this moment where we start to do some digging and get some curiosity around what's not feeling right for me. And then something is feeling off. And now we got to unpack, really choosy on what we want to take with us. A lot of the things I think that we've packed are the shoulds, the expectations. So how do we move through that, take what we want, and move the rest. But again, that piece of permission comes up of like, right? Because everybody's got something to say about everything, especially in parenting. It's this way or it's that way, or do the 1, 2, 3 steps, or the gentle parenting, or the consequences, like all of the things, right? Everybody's got something to say, but the reality is you get to choose.
Yes. How can people find you, Tara, if they've resonated with this conversation today?
So they can find me. I am on Facebook and on Instagram. I spend more time on Instagram than I do on Facebook, but it's MS Tara Duckworth is my handle. And then also my website is www.taraduckworth.com.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and giving such insightful reflection questions. I'm going to distill those down into the show notes and actually like write those questions out because I think they hit me even. And I had to close my eyes a couple of times, just like letting that reflection question settle, because even though we sit where we sit as professionals who help other people, I learn so much from my clients and from the guests on the podcast that I don't pretend to be an expert in anything. And I have so much to learn. So those reflection questions really were powerful for me. And so that's what I'm taking from today's conversation is the what's there, what's underneath that, what's behind that, what's the darkest part of that, what needs keeping, giving permission.
Yeah. I get so much as well, from working with clients, and my kids teach me, but yes, my clients teach me as well. And it's interesting because, it's the clients that kind of come in those sessions and those times that I have that I'm just like, am I supposed to hear this? It's me, right? I don't have these answers. I'm no expert. I have some tools to be able to provide some reflection. Perhaps I can create a safe space. I can walk beside someone and sit with someone in the dark, if you will. But I don't have it. I'm no expert. I don't have anybody's answers. I can't tell you to do 1, 2, 3, 4, steps A, B, and C to get this resolved. I think there's something about being able to know, you're not alone, especially in parenting, especially in love, especially when you got some deep feelers, for kiddos, right? Or that are struggling in spots. It's a hard thing to walk your kids home, but I have never met one struggling child who did not have a struggle. They wanted them.
Yes, that is so uncomfortably true for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Tara, for being here with us today. And I wish you all of the best in your practice and all of the good work and the hearts that you touch it's incredible and brave.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.